This is Garden Variety, a horticulture podcast from Iowa Public Radio and Iowa State University Extension and Outreach. I'm Charity Nebbe. The words fire blight strike fear into the hearts of fruit growers. If you know, you know. But if you don't know, it is a highly contagious bacterial disease that affects fruit trees. Today, we will talk about treatment and prevention. Suzanne Slack is an assistant professor of horticulture at Iowa State University and a fruit specialist. Hello, Suzanne.
Hi, Charity. How are you?
I'm good. All right. First, what is fire blight for the uninitiated?
Yeah, so fire blight is caused by a bacteria, so it's a disease. It affects pome fruits, but it can also impact raspberries and even strawberries. And what it does is the bacteria kill the tissue to eat it, and it causes the fire blight symptoms. So it literally looks like someone torched your tree with like a torch. It literally looks like it caught on fire.
And does it just show up overnight?
It can. So the bacteria can move internally, killing cells as it goes, and typically you don't notice it for a little bit. The bacteria can move as fast as 2 inches a day into the plant. Yeah. So it can be pretty fast once it starts.
So once you see the symptoms, you need to act fast. Let's say you don't act fast. What will happen to your plant?
So if your tree is a semi-dwarf or a standard tree and it's below the age of about 5, it could kill the tree. It can get to the rootstock and kill it. If you have an older tree, like over 15 years old, that has lots of scaffolded, like really woody branches, the wood kind of slows it down a little bit, but eventually it'll take it out over the couple of years. And if you have dwarf fruit trees, no matter how old they are, it can take them out in a year, like the whole season.
So if it shows up in an orchard, it's a big deal.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
All right. So let's say you do go outside one day and you look at your apple tree and it looks like it's been torched. What do you do?
Panic a little bit. And then I'm being realistic.
Yes.
Panic a little bit. And then my suggestion is to prune it out as fast as you can. Like I said, it moves about 2 inches a day. So the bacteria is already below where you see symptoms. So you need to cut it out at least 6 to 8 inches below where you see symptoms, as far back as you can.
Okay, and this is a bacterial infection. So when you are cutting it out, what kind of precautions do you need to take so that you're not accidentally infecting other parts of the tree while you're treating the tree?
Yeah, so the old recommendation was to use 10% bleach every cut you make. There's been some massive pruning studies. We've had a couple of massive fire blight outbreaks in orchards in the past couple of years, unfortunately, and we found that it actually doesn't help that much. My suggestion is, if it makes you feel better, using some kind of like Clorox wipe. It doesn't have to be Clorox brand, but some kind of wipe where you're actually like physically using some kind of like paper towel or the wipe to actually clean the blades would actually be the best.
Okay, but that doesn't necessarily help that much, is what you're saying, according to recent research.
Yeah, you only need about like 10 cells to survive to cause a new infection. So it doesn't, you have to really, really clean them, and that's really time intensive. So if you have the time to like make sure they're really sterilized, go for it. But realistically, 10 cells. So.
Where does fire blight come from?
So fire blight's actually endemic to the United States. So it was here before we brought apples over. Its native hosts are like cotoneasters and hawthorns. Some service berries can also get it. But it doesn't really cause a lot of disease on them. So it's kind of just like, it causes a little bit of problems, but not really. And then we brought over apples. And it realized they like apples. And apples are like, what's this bacteria? We've never seen it before. And the rest is unfortunate history.
Long history. Okay,
Yes.
So it's around. It's always around.
Yes.
What are the conditions that allow it to spread?
So fire blight spreads, or Erwinia malavra is the causal agent. So the bacteria spreads through wind and rain events. So it oozes out of cankers from the previous year, and those ooze droplets are basically concentrated bacterial cells. And they can get disrupted. Flies really like them. They can turn into basically strands. They look like spider webs, blow in the wind. They can be moved by flies and insects. If it's in a tree and it rains, it just splashes the cells around.
Okay, so a warm, wet spring is kind of ideal for fire blight.
Yes.
And I know we had a warm, wet spring a couple of years ago. How bad did things get in 2024?
2024 was a pretty interesting fire blight year. We did see a lot of fire blight across the state. Last year, we also saw a lot of fire blight across the state. I even saw some on trees at box stores.
Oh, wow. So you could
Last
buy
year.
an infected tree.
You could buy your fire blight and bring it home.
Oh, no.
I was joking. My husband wouldn't let me buy them to save anyone, so I'm sorry about that.
Okay. There must be some sort of symbol that we could have, like just tie an orange ribbon on those trees.
Yeah, don't buy it.
Don't buy it. Look at your trees carefully before buying. That's a good idea. Okay. And so let's say your trees were infected in 2024. Let's say you did all the things that Suzanne would recommend that you do. Then last year, were you still more likely to have fire blight on those same trees?
Once you get it, it can be something that's like you have to manage a number of years. If you miss, a little bit of it, it'll just keep repopulating. Bacteria can multiply pretty quickly, especially in an environment they like, and they do like apple trees or pears. I would actually say that pears are more susceptible to fire blight and more likely to die, even if they're big trees. It's one of the limiting factors for growing pears in our region.
Okay.
Yes.
So this year, obviously, if you've had fire blight before, you should be on the lookout. Are you already seeing cases?
That's so funny. Tomorrow morning, we're going to go out and look and see if we can see if that's what's going on. Unfortunately, since we've had some freezes, sometimes the flowers can look damaged from a freeze, and it could mimic early stages of fire blight, so it can be really hard to tell. The most telltale sign is so it's typically starts with flowers, so it moves from the cankers to the flowers. When the flowers are pollinated and they're staying on, they'll turn kind of blackish, kind of like a blackish mottled color. On pears, it's really easy to see because they'll just turn straight black. But on apples, they're kind of mottled, but they'll start making those ooze droplets.
Okay, so this is all really terrible news, but of course, fire blight has been around since the beginning of apple trees on this continent. So fruit breeders are creating hybrids that are resistant, right?
Sure. So we have
That's the idea. So does it work?
No. So we have resistant rootstock. Okay. Cornell has a line of resistant rootstock that works great, and we do trial them at Iowa State. And if anyone's interested, we do make that information public on our trialing the Geneva rootstocks. However, for scions, and I think this is kind of across the board for any plant, if a bacteria or a fungi like to eat it, there's a good chance humans like to eat it. If they don't like to eat it, there's a good chance that maybe we don't like to eat it.
So the worst tasting apples are the most resistant. The worst tasting pears are the most resistant. Is that what you're telling me?
I would say historically, there's been a lot of work on pears specifically, cultivars that are more resistant. We actually have an extension pub where we trialed quite a few different pear cultivars for fire blight susceptibility. And there's not one that's like 100% resistant, but there are ones that are better. And we did test them against fire blight strains that were found in Iowa. So they're not from the East Coast or West Coast. They're strains that are endemic to the Midwest. So that's a really good resource if you're looking at some of these newer pear cultivars.
Okay, so let's talk practical advice. If you have a pear tree, if you have apple trees, it's easy to, especially if you're a homeowner and you're not really cultivating, it's pretty easy to ignore the fruit trees in the spring. They're going to flower and be beautiful. And then later you're going to think about, oh yeah, the apples are ripening. So do you have recommendations for how often do we need to make sure we've got eyes on our trees and are really paying attention?
So for a homeowner, I would say, and I think we've talked about this before, but if you only do a couple of sprays a year, if you have pears and apples, especially together or nearby, and if you're around other fruit trees or other places where fire blight could be hanging out, I would do a copper spray at bloom. They do sell bloom sprays that are safe for homeowners and safe for pollinators. So they're not fungicides, they're bactericides. So it's typically a copper spray. It's not going to hurt the bees. I would do that, especially if you had fire blight in the past.
Okay.
And then
We've
I would
missed that
probably check
window
them.
this year,
Yes.
so we'll write that
Yes.
down for next year. But so tell me again, is it during bloom that you spray them?
You would do it during bloom, yes.
Okay.
And there'll be instructions on the back. And then I would wait like 4-ish weeks because it'll be hard to see unless you're like a fire blight specialist if they're starting. And check to make sure you don't have an outbreak. And then if you do, just start cutting it out. Once it gets into late summer, it can be really hard to manage it. You'll be fighting it constantly.
And then once it really has infected your orchard, I can imagine that the next year is almost a write-off as well. Is that what you're telling me? This sounds terrible, Suzanne.
Yeah, it's a pretty big deal. So the big thing would be to make sure you prune as much of it out as possible. And if you had it the previous year, it only takes one missed canker to cause the whole thing over again. So making sure that there's sprays to kill the bacteria before it can infect the flower is really important.
All right. Are these cankers easy to see?
I think they are. We have a lot of resources online to show what these cankers look like. It is easier on apples than pears. This is switching back. It is easier to see them on apples than pears because on apples, they kind of turn purplish.
Okay.
On pears, it's harder to see them.
All right. Is this the disease with the coolest name in all of fruit growing? Do you think, Suzanne?
I do. I think so. It's I've been working on fire blight for 15 years, and I really it's one of my passion projects to cure the world of fire blight, but it is a pretty cool disease.
All right. And a great name.
We're working on it.
I guess we should name other diseases in such exciting ways so that we get more attention for them. Suzanne Slack is an assistant professor of horticulture at Iowa State University and a fruit specialist. For more gardening information and tips, please subscribe to our garden variety newsletter. Find out more at iowapublicradio.org/garden. I'm Charity Nebbe. Garden Variety is a production of Iowa Public Radio and Iowa State University Extension. It's produced by me, Erin Stile, Caitlin Troutman, and the Iowa Public Radio talk show team. For more garden goodness, please subscribe to our Garden Variety newsletter. Just go to iowapublicradio.org/garden. I'm Charity Nebbe. See you next time.